everybody. It's the Z Lord podcast.
Hear that?
And that's Carter with his drum, the drummer boy. Boom, 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 boom.
It's pretty tight, especially considering that it's pouring down
Pouring
rain outside,
rain.
lightning
And who am
thundering.
I am teZa, yes. So welcome. And wow, we're right in the middle of a big storm, but what better time to have a conversation about, really deep and wonderful spiritual matters when there's a storm. I love storms.
About courage.
Well, yeah, we could talk about courage. Storms are pretty courageous. They just do whatever the hell they want to, don't they? And so human courage, wow, to be a human in this day and age takes a lot of courage. There's a lot of stuff happening out there in the world. We're faced with a lot.
It's always been that way. It's always been that way.
I'm not saying that now is any worse than any other time. I'm just saying to be a human takes courage.
But we were talking earlier. You were suggesting that it's hard to, it's not so easy to stand up and say what you think. If you're in a room of people that have a different opinion, then for you to stand up and say what you think about things takes a lot of guts, and I think it does.
Well, if it goes against
always been that
what
way.
Is the common denominator, and if you're an odd person in a group where everybody has a particular flavor, it does take courage to express yourself rather than keep it quiet.
And if things are cliquish, or if you're in a political discussion and most people are of a different thinking, then it's hard to stand up for what you think.
Well, let's not go into politics right now. Let's keep it I know when I was younger, a lot of people were very uncomfortable talking about spirituality. They thought that was woo-woo. They thought that was not real. It's why don't you just talk about, your job or your kids or, your car. And spirituality is something that, now people are starting to be interested in talking about. It's become part of our culture.
Yeah, but if you're around a fundamental group of people that have a fundamental way of thinking about religion, then it's the same situation. If you're going to be thought of as woo-woo, unless you have a good way of the way I think about it.
Wait a minute, that's a good point that you brought up, because I have a very specific example of a time when I was confronted by a preacher. It was at a funeral, not in a nasty way, but he in a few sentences of talking with me, discovered that I was not a fundamental Christian. And he wanted to know, he said, so tell me about your way of looking at it. We were at a funeral. And so it was about death. And I got to express myself, because I've always been able to express myself, thank goodness. It comes in handy when you're a writer to be able to express yourself, because some people, they stumble over words and they say, oh, you know what I mean, or I can't say what I mean, or, blah, blah, blah. But I've done enough expressing of myself where I can, if somebody gives me time and space and they're not threatening, I can express myself.
Well, if anybody has courage in this life, it's you.
You too, Carter.
You'd be on the top 1% of people that have the guts to say what you think and be strong.
I think you're just right up there with me.
Well, but we all are reticent to say stuff. But was this guy friendly about it?
Yes, he was very nice. It was a very private conversation. It happened actually while we were at your sister's church. This was about 25 years ago, a long time ago. Somebody was having a funeral. We had attended it, and it was, Methodist or something. And so the priest, or I called him a preacher, I don't know what his official title was, father or whatever they called him. It wasn't a Catholic priest. He just was curious to know what I was feeling about specifically death because of something I had said.
Well, that's great. So he didn't come at you with contempt, and he came at you with respect, and he listened to what you had to say.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate way to have any kind of a discussion with someone. And we want to make sure, I want to make sure, if I'm expressing an opinion, and somebody comes in with the opposite opinion, that I have the courtesy and the respect and the kindness to shut up and let them express themselves and be kind, because then I might learn something and he might learn something from you, and you might learn something from him. That's what a real discussion is, and what we're lacking a lot in our particular time in this society with the advent of the internet and the social media and all that stuff, where people have a tendency to vent and rant and just get pissed off and demand their floor. But as Arthur Brooks says in the Love Your Enemies book, that we're living in a world of contempt, and contempt. We all want to make sure that we don't ever fall into being contemptuous of others, because it stops the conversation. That's the end of it.
Right in the tracks.
You can discuss something with somebody who's mad, and you could have an argument with someone and be angry at them, but you can't crap on them in contempt, because that's the one thing that he says that stays with you, and you can't have a conversation. And the thing about life is, in Congress and in day-to-day life and with people we meet, we want to be able to say what we think, and we want to be able to discuss stuff, and we want the other guy to feel free that he's able to discuss stuff too. So what you're saying is that it takes courage to stand up for your beliefs, but it's very important that we do it, and we all need to do it, and we all need to make sure that our mind is such that we let the other guy say what he thinks too, and we listen, because we might learn something.
Right. And so it's in all areas of life. It's not just one area. I mean, we all have the right to have our own truth. And you said earlier you don't believe in that person having their truth and that other person having their truth. I believe, yes, that people do have different ways of perceiving things, and that is called their truth. And that's what we have to honor, that for some people they would die for their truth. But for another person, it's like, it doesn't matter. Their truth is not on their register, you know?
Let me just be real clear about that. Right? So in my opinion, there is one truth, and my job is to work all my life as hard as I can to find out what that truth is. My obligation is to find out what is the real truth.
For you.
No,
I
don't think so.
No, see, Carter, this is really an interesting thing. How can you say that you know what
I don't know.
You perceive to be your truth is the same truth as like some guy who lives over in Lebanon and has never even lived in, a house like we live, or had to, the same. I mean, his perception of what truth is totally dependent upon what his life experience is.
Well, that's right. So he would need to be open to the fact that there are other life experiences other than what he knows, and me too. Yeah. But that's not to say that there isn't an aspect of my truth and your truth, and there is an aspect of that in life. But so many times we hear that somebody says, "Oh, well, this is my truth." And most of the time it's bullshit. It just means that they're going to think what they think, and to hell with everybody else. And I remember there was a recent big thing in a political, I won't get into it, discussion, but this lady was hanging her hat on the fact that this was her truth. But it wasn't. Who cares what her truth is? I mean, it's okay to respect somebody else's truth, but I think there is truth, and this is what we all seek. And it's much more important to seek the universal truth than it is for me to have my little truth, and this is what I think, and if you don't like it, to hell with you, and then you have your little truths. But there is a truth in things somewhere, in my view, but it's a semantical thing, and it's used a lot and bandied around. But
I think it doesn't set well with me what you're saying. Okay, so may I have the floor for
you
a
may.
minute? Okay, because I'm actually writing about this subject right now. It has a lot to do with this next book that I'm starting. And for a person to say that, okay, this is my truth and this is how I'm going to live, first of all, they have to be able to have awareness of what their truth is, which means that they've taken the time and the energy to see that, oh, that person over there, that truth doesn't suit me, or that religion over there, that doesn't ring true to me, or that kind of food over there, that seems kind of like ridiculous, and that's not my, true way of being healthy. So for a person to even make that statement saying, this is my truth, that's a very intense statement. And I think that that's really cool that somebody knows themselves that well. But I also think that it varies from person to person. And that's where you and I have this difference. And it's good for us to have a difference because you and I have a lot of difference. We have a lot of love. We have a lot of respect for each other. But we have had differences in not just religious stuff, because you're religious and I'm spiritual, or political stuff, because you're political and I'm not political, but also little things like when we were raising kids. I mean, we had to go to see a family shrink because we had differences in what should be discipline and what should be not discipline, what should be a chore, what should be fun, all those many choices that we make in life, which really brings me to the real topic that we wanted to talk about, is that what we think about is what we become.
Yes.
And that is the truth.
That's the ultimate
That's the
truth.
ultimate truth. What we think about is what we become. So if you're thinking a lot about this and this and this and that, which is not my thinking, then I'm not going to become the same kind of, person that you are. I have my own, which it could be said, it's not different than yours just to be different, because it's all just like what we decide to do with our life energy and our mental capacity. But I don't think about the same things that you do.
That's
I just
right.
don't.
And we're all on different levels, and we all understand things on a different level. But the important thing is that we act on what we know to be true and right. And if we know almost nothing, but our actions are pure in that we act in the way of what we know is true and right. Like if we know that it's good, it's right to be kind to the poor old lady that wants to go across the street and help her across the street. And so we're standing on the street corner and here she comes, and we're too busy to help her, or we choose not to help her. Then we're going against what we know to be right because she needs help. And if we do that, then that creates who we are and who we become. And so if we know something to be right and we don't do it, that's as important a guideline in our life as if we know something to be right and we do it.
Yeah.
And you could say, for instance, about the truth thing. Let's say, for instance, my truth is I don't like broccoli. Your truth is you like broccoli. So
I don't like broccoli. I just eat it because I have to.
Let's say I like broccoli. That's my truth is I like broccoli. Your truth is you don't like broccoli. And so, but that doesn't mean that broccoli is either tasty or not. It just means for me it's not, but it doesn't have anything to do with the truth that broccoli is what broccoli is. It's a something. So there's a truth in there somewhere. I just don't happen to like it, or you don't happen to like it.
So Carter, I hate to say it, but what you just said is a perfect example of how everybody has their own truth. If somebody says, I like broccoli or I don't like broccoli, that is very, very different truths.
That's right.
And so there's two people with two different truths about broccoli. And so, that's a stupid kind of mundane way of bringing it down.
Example.
But it could just be something huge, like, how we perceive the environment, or how we perceive compassion for, our individuals, or how much do we sacrifice to help other people. There's big, big issues that can come down the line except for broccoli. But I truly believe that once teZa, has determined what feels right inside of me, my my like factor, my rightness factor, I call it truth. My barometer feels, okay, this is good. I'm in sync. I'm in sync with the universe. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to act on that. I'm going to speak about it. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not even probably going to be quiet about it if there are people who are going against it. I'll bring out a suggestion, hopefully a kind and loving suggestion, like, oh, there's another way of looking at things.
And so then you risk taking a position that somebody else doesn't like.
Right.
And so as soon as you do that, then you have to have the courage of your convictions to take what comes, because people react to things differently. Some people don't mind it if somebody says, "Oh, I don't like this or that." Some people are like the preacher; they're able to say, "Oh, isn't that interesting? Tell me why, and maybe I can learn something from you." Somebody else may say, "Why, you SOB? How can you be such a bigot or whatever and a Nazi and start calling you names?" And then you lose your friends and all that kind, and don't have an acquaintance. Then you have to go through that whole thing about, is this somebody I care whether I lose their thing or not? I got to stand up for what I believe is true, and you try to do it in as uncontemptuous a manner as you possibly can. But you've got a right to what you think, and they've got a right to what they think. But they don't have a right to be contemptuous.
Right, and I find that a lot of people in this time period, because there's a lot of challenges happening in society. A lot of people see there's loss and maybe not enough gain, not enough of a balance of the good and the take. Maybe they don't look for it. I try to look for it, and you have to usually dive deep into the back pages of newspapers. They don't put them out in front because that doesn't sell. The headlines have to be drastic, but I truly believe that, for myself, I find that I'm in the minority about how I am viewing life in general these days. And I don't know if that's because I'm at the age that I'm at or at the development that I'm at.
What part of the minority are you? You mean by looking at spiritual matters as being the most important things? What is it that you're out of line on?
To me, the spiritual aspect of life is the aspect that has the most importance for me. And so, for instance, I look at society and I look at it as a spiritual experiment, almost like in a petri dish. I see it as, okay, how are we doing? And I see that, compared to when I was younger, like in the 60s, 70s, when you had to really keep it hush-hush, you couldn't talk about the fact that you felt connected to the universe. And now a lot of people are talking about that connection, that oneness, that consciousness that we are striving for rather than power or politics. I find that our culture is really evolved.
Yeah, well, I think we're more aware. There's a more.
But wait, I didn't finish my
awareness.
thought. A lot of people do not feel that we are very evolved right now. They think that we are in a very dark area. And I don't subscribe to that at all. I don't go there. I don't believe it. I don't feel it. I can't conjure it up when somebody starts pointing out things. I see just as many positive, wonderful discoveries as there are things that have been, declared to be obstructions or even reversals of like helping the environment, for instance. And, there's a lot of really good awakening things happening. And I feel very positive about what's happening in this day and age.
There's your opportunity to contribute to the discussion and say what you think. And you may or may not sway anybody's opinion, but you can at least voice your own, and as long as you do it with kindness, then it's gonna have the effect that it has, and you can't control a lot of the effect that it's having. You can just do your best.
I think I do it with kindness, and not just do it.
You do.
And to me, it's not just theory; it is actual stuff that I call experiential. This is my experience. This is the way I have discovered that life is for me, because when I try to, fool myself, saying, oh, no, it's really not that, positive. It's not that spiritually evolving like you're trying to tell yourself. It just disrupts my energy. It does not feel right. I feel like I'm living a lie. And so, I do all these things, I formulate my opinions by how it feels, not by what I read in the paper, not by, the popular whatever consensus. I try to read a lot, all different things, all different subjects. Across the board, I spend at least an hour a day reading current events, and that means all the way from, weird things like people getting struck by lightning when they're out elk hunting, and glacier people falling off of glaciers, going mountains, not just what's happening in our government, what people are doing navigating this planet. How are they spending their time, like with their feet on the earth? How are they experiencing being alive? And that's what's really interesting to me. And it's across the board. I mean, like, the experiences are vast, and they're extreme, and they're also like going more and more towards, I believe, like a heightened perception of what our possibilities are, whether it's happiness that people are talking a lot about, or altered states, which a lot of people are experimenting with who have depression or anxiety. And of course, modern day is equal to anxiety and depression. I mean, a lot of people have had trouble with, the pills addictions. It started with a lot of Zoloft and, Prozac and all this stuff for decades. It's been a well-known fact that modern society is a harrowing experience for a lot of people. Right? You and I are lucky we're not into we don't even drink alcohol or
we've had
smoke pot or anything.
We've had our time.
Yeah, we've had our time. We've had to chill out. But now we do it the natural way. We meditate. We take forest baths. That's kind of a phony word for just a good old walk in the woods.
That's what the Japanese use.
Yeah,
I think it's a good way, because it gives you get all that. If you get out in nature and you get surrounded by the nice healthy oxygen that's being given off by the plants are sucking up the carbon dioxide, and they're pushing out oxygen, and you're in the middle of it, and it's healthy, it's good.
And we're barefoot a lot. I mean, I'm more barefoot than you are these days. There was a time when you were barefoot more than me.
My skin has gotten so thin on the bottom of my feet, I'm tiptoeing, mincing around. It's become embarrassing.
I remember when I first met you, and you were introducing me to your mom, and she later said to you, but Carter, she was barefoot. And, there was a time in our society.
Barefoot. We were both barefoot.
Yeah, there was a time in our society when people who chose to be barefoot, even casually meeting somebody, like the parents of a new boyfriend, that would be considered taboo, So we've come a long way. Our society has really changed. And so the destiny of our human race has to do with what do we do with our mental capacities? What do we choose to think about? What do we dwell upon? Because we're all going to be obsessing about something. That's what the human condition does. Some people call it monkey mind. I just call it, being alive. I mean, our mind wants to think constantly. And so what we choose to think about, that is what our life becomes.
Yeah, what your life becomes is what you choose. So if we're choosing to call each other Nazis and fascists, then what happens is fascism results, and we end up shooting people that disagree with us. So that's a classic example of, if someone's thinking that someone else is a fascist and calling them names, then we're going to end up, they're going to end up being fascists themselves. And if we have whatever it is that we are doing, as we apply what we know, then we become aware, and so if we know, how it is that we don't know that it's not healthy and it's not proper to call other people names. I don't understand how our whole society can not understand
Let's just
that
talk.
they're doing that.
Wait.
So,
wait. First of all, you're going into.
but it's an instinct.
Wait.
Yeah,
You're going into kind of a negative place.
Right.
We could change it right here to say that when a thought or when we meet a person who says things that negative with our words, we could just say, you know what? I don't have that belief system. I don't feel that. I don't own it. To me, it's not true. It's not my truth. And I don't even have to repeat that N word. You know, I don't like to say N words, whether it's the N word about, African Americans or the N word about, referring to governments. But I think that it's really important to call people on when they're going into negative things, because a lot of people don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
They are unconsciously falling along with the stream of what they see on social media or their screens or what their friends are saying or what their ranting husbands are saying.
But you want to make sure you do it in a way. This is an example about applying what you know, so that if you know that something's wrong, and you know somebody's sitting there doing it right in front of you, then what is the reaction? The reaction would be to try to make it better and to be a positive influence. And so then you have the obligation, in my opinion, to try to communicate in a way that would allow this next person to see it without feeling that you're judging them or attacking them or putting them down, but say it in a way so that they can recognize, and maybe they won't have that attitude next time. Maybe they'll ameliorate whatever it is that they're doing. So that would be a positive influence in the world if you could do that.
Just to bring it to everybody's attention, not just our own, but to everybody, that we have choices. We definitely have choices about what we think about. And just like, I was reading about prayer in today's paper in reference to somebody wrote that they didn't believe in prayer. They were not raised in any religion, but they recently had a son who passed away, and they were just saying that, wow, I feel the prayers. I feel what other people have been offering because they just needed help going through such a tragedy. And we hear that a lot because we work with prayer quite a bit. And we hear how people really respond when they know that they're being prayed for. They can feel it. And it's not just an imaginary thing. I mean, they've actually done studies about it, and they can measure it. People are separated by a wall, and one person will be on the other side of the wall praying, and the other person will just be sitting there like not knowing what's going on, but they register something with electrodes or however they're, measuring sensors. And prayer is an invisible form of its thought, but it's positive thought. It's sending positive thought waves. I call them thought seeds. I write about that a lot in my book, Hybrid Vigor, where we can send out the seeds of positive evolution just by the way we catch ourselves having a negative thought and changing it into a positive thought.
Well, there's certainly an invisible world all around us of all kind of things, even simple things like radio waves and all that. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not out there. They're running through us all the time.
I mean, how many times have you turned around and felt weird and somebody's looking at you, right?
Yeah.
You feel it when somebody's staring at you. So prayer is actually, Peggy Noonan wrote about that. I think it was last week. I love Peggy Noonan. And she just said, wow, America, this is the time for prayer. And, it's a very powerful exercise of how to use your thought energy. And sometimes it's directed at a certain thing. Other times it's just, okay, keep it positive. Don't go down that dark hole. Don't get scared. Don't go along with, the fear factor, and just keep things positive.
Yeah, and try to make sure that that whatever the things that we know to be true, that we act upon them and do them. And that'll take courage. That'll create in us truth. And then as we have truth, then we'll learn something else. And it's a slow process of learning as we go and applying what we know, and that will create our destiny.
So that word destiny, we've been talking about that in our study group. It's kind of I don't know, it's a weird concept. I guess it has to do with me thinking that we have free will, that we can choose to undo like some bad karma, for instance. Like I used to feel in my younger years when I was struggling with addiction that I was doomed, that everything I did just turned to mush. I was feeling rejection everywhere, and I didn't want to think, but it's kind of like looked like my destiny was really going for the pits. But I have since discovered, especially putting down addiction, coming into the spiritual life one day at a time, really focusing on positive things, that we can change our destinies.
Of course we can. It's in the choices that you make every day. And if you choose the light and you choose to be kind and you choose to be loving and nice, then your destiny will evolve in that way. And we're all creating our destiny every day on the choices that we make and how we're applying the things that we understand.
Especially how we think.
And I think that there's a lot of, like I know in my own life, there's a tendency to, number one, we know certain things, but we don't necessarily trust them. And we're always wanting to convince somebody else that this is it and this is the truth. But really, if I can just be quiet and say, oh, this is wrong. I know this is wrong. I'm not going to go down this path. I'm going to do this. That's really the biggest thing that there is in all of life, is to be secure in what we know and be sure, and then go down that road and act on that. So if we're put in a situation where we have to choose between being honest or dishonest, we just want to make sure that we do, even if it's hard, we choose to do what's right, and then our destiny will become better, and we will create a different destiny than if we were just a mealy-mouthed doormat getting shoved around and pushed around. Pretty soon we'll be strong, and we'll be standing up for what's right all the time, and that will be a big thing.
And awareness, I think, is something that you have to want. And once you have that desire to want to be more aware, you become more aware. And that's how you really can make sure that your thoughts are not just dwelling in negative things. And you can change. You can have a choice right there. Hey, I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable with it. I'm going to change it.
There you go.
And if you don't know how to change it, just go to YouTube and type in how to change your thoughts. Or go to my YouTube and look up mind stillers, because I like to offer those ways of stilling the mind when it gets a little crazy. So that's
There
good.
You
So
stand up for what you think is the right thing, Tez, and I'll try my best to do that too, and do it in a kind way, and see if we can be a positive force in the world.
And one thing I know about life is as soon as you close one door, another opens, or two or three open. So sometimes it's okay to lose friends because they don't agree with you or they don't like the way you're talking about something that they disagree about. That's okay.
And as long as you're kind and doing your best to be understanding, then you can't control how something is taken by another person. Mm-hmm. But you also know that you may say something now that doesn't seem like it has an effect, but it might just go in there, and 2 years down the road, it has made a big influence on someone. So we just plant these seeds out there and try to do the right thing.
Thought seeds.
then
So the positive
part
thought
of it is
seeds.
the universe. I remember when we used to say, "Oh God, what are we going to tell?" So they'd say, "Oh, you got to try to tell somebody about this," and we say, "Well, I don't know how the heck you tell somebody about this." And
But tell them about what?
well, tell them about God, for instance.
Oh.
And I was always insecure to try to talk about it because I didn't have a big vocabulary. And then I finally realized that all I had to do was say, "Hey, look what this is," and then let God speak to them. I don't have to do the talking. Let God do the talking. Mm-hmm. All I got to do is lay it out there, and let the universe do the talking. I mean, everybody else is just as smart and strong and capable and aware as I am. I don't have to know everything and have it all ready, lined up to regurgitate.
I think the best way to talk about God is about nature. I mean, just something simple as staring at a leaf or staring at a cloud, and just getting away from intellectualizing and just appreciating the bounty of this beautiful creation that we have. I mean, that's a really beautiful, peaceful way of introducing somebody to that concept. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye, folks, because I have a little job I want to do, and we'll see you next week. And
all right.
Carter, thanks so much for taking us out with our little drum. And remember, everybody, if nobody has told you recently, I love you.
There you go, Tez.
Carter loves you too, even though he can't say it yet.
All right, I do too.
Om Namah Shivaya.